Hey guys, WMRL. Actually used to be KO4BOE in Jacksonville, Florida. Now I'm in Arkansas. I moved back home, so glad to be back home. I've been chasing some strange signals on 75 meters. We'll call it 75 because that's actually technically what it's supposed to be. 80 meters is like what is it, around 3.6 and below, 3.7 and below. Somebody can comment on that, please, and let me know. So anyway, I decided I'd go ahead and do a quick rig rundown. Now that I'm here, the signals are obviously gone, so I can't hear them anymore. And I asked my local weatherman if he was doing some scans with his radar on a particular, well, let's say frequency, but I mean, we can pick it up anywhere, obviously. So maybe he was picking it up on, or maybe I was picking it up that he was putting a scan in a very particular part of a cloud, because the way it sounded was the scan was increasing in pitch very slightly, not very much. But it seemed to indicate that somebody was scanning a cloud, and they were scanning it at different elevations. But the only thing that threw me off was that there were that was a carrier. There was a carrier along with it, and it was on 38.4. If anybody wants to listen, I doubt you're going to hear it. And I did a Google search of it, and evidently there's some lids that are doing some particularly stupid stuff on 38.4. So I didn't know that at the time. I did a little research before this video. Actually, I did another video. Things went wonky and it didn't take. So here's number two. Actually, this is number two. So I think now that it was malicious interference and not necessarily anything atmospheric or man-made as far as like basically radar goes, because it really sounded like a radar sweep or an isonasond, or however the hell you say that. I don't even know how you say that. Basically to check propagation, for lack of a better word. So that's almost what it sounded like until I heard the carrier, and that kind of threw me off. So I mean, since we're already here, all right, okay. It's one of the local repeaters. Actually, not local, but I've got my beam swung that direction. So oh yeah, we're gonna kill that DMR. So I mean, since I've got you here, let's do a rig rundown. Okay, I'm not completely set up yet, so this, in a nutshell, is an empty beer can. We won't worry about that. And running. If it'll fire up there. There we go. Okay. This is my little home away from home, my tiny little ham shack right here. This is all I've got now. So, yeah, obviously that is some DMR going right there, so we'll shut that off. This is my 2-meter rig, an FT3200, which is a Yaesu Fusion capable, but not Wires X. No, it is not Wires X. Didn't really care about that when I bought it, but I wished I had that information when I did. And this is the SWR power meter for that. It's a Diamond. Okay, guys, it's a Diamond SX200. Yeah, it's not the best in the world, but I can read. Obviously, I can read SWRs, but I can also read forward power and I can read reflected power, which is it's pretty much pointless once you get it set up and everything's right. But I do like to have an SWR meter in line in case something goes wrong. But on 2 meters, you're gonna know it really quick. I mean, come on, yeah, you're all of a sudden talking to these guys, and then your receiver goes silent. Why did it go silent? Well, more than likely, you're going to have a feed line or an antenna problem. The radio is not going to be the issue. I guess having an SWR meter there is just for kind of a crutch, just to make sure everything is still running good. And it's very minimal loss into an SWR meter, so we're going to run that. I like that. This right above it is my voltmeter, because I do have a battery backup system over here. And it is fed off of a UPS, uninterruptible power supply. And obviously it does charge the radio, or charge the battery just a little bit. And right now we can see the charge rate, which is just a little over 1/10 of an amp, and we're sitting at 3.74 volts. If I want to change this over, it's an 81 amp hour battery, and obviously it's at 100%. Because we've had power for a while here. And just so you know, I've only been living here for less than a week. I actually moved here. I'm in Arkansas right now. I think I said that. And I moved from Florida. So if you're looking at my QRZ page and the date is, well, it's just fixing to flip over to the 23rd. My QRZ is not updated yet, so it's still going to show Jacksonville, Florida. Anyway, let's continue. My power supply. My good old 30 amp power supply. It is a switching power supply, so it's not ideal. But I do get some noise on my... Holy moly. I do get some noise on my HF rig from it, and this button, noise offset. I wasn't sure if this would even work or not, but it makes a huge difference. Because say there's one signal out there, you're tuning around and it sounds like that. Well, then all you got to do is just turn that knob just a little bit, and brings it right back in. Very good. I love this thing. It's rated for 30. But in all honesty, it's not going to do a full 30. I've seen it do a full 30. It will, but it pisses it off and it starts making a lot of noise. So that's why I have my battery backup down there, because I do have it tied in to the back on the main lugs, to where if it's not able to supply the full 30 amps of current, then the battery will supply what's needed. So it works out pretty good, and it keeps this thing a lot cooler than what it would normally be. Now, of course, I'm utilizing the cigarette lighter plug here, and I've got this little LED light that I actually got from Gigaparts. A really cool little rig. I mean, it's small, obviously. You can see how small it is. And I just plug it in to the cigarette lighter, touch it on the back, and that gives it full power. Touch it again, and it goes off, obviously. But if you turn it on here and you touch it and you hold it wherever you want the dimmer to be, that's where it'll be. So that's a really neat little rig. So okay, the Yazoo, we've got the meter, we've got my voltmeter that monitors my battery voltage and how much I'm putting into it and how much I'm taking out. Because obviously if I key up a radio, which I'm not gonna do it on that, let's do it on this as unused frequency. You can see my amp meter. It's supplying about 9 amps, and also the battery. Actually, the battery's not supplying anything. It's because this thing is turned on right now. So anyway, if I turn this thing off, then you would actually see how much current that it's drawn from the battery, which is 9.5 amps. So not necessary, but it's really neat little, I don't know, I like having meters so I can look at stuff. So let's move on over here to my HF rig. This is an MFJ 969 Versatuner 2. I've only put about 120 watts into this thing. It actually works fairly decent, even with just a random piece of wire sticking out of the back. And I'm serious when I say it's just a random piece of wire sticking out the back. You can't see, but it goes out to a true limb, about 90 foot. And there's actually a counterweight on the end of it. So if the tree starts to move, then the counterweight will keep the slack, steady. And I'm not kidding. It's a literal piece of wire. That's all it is. So it works great. Also, that's actually my wire connection. And of course, this is a 3-position, 4-position if you want to get really technical with it. I've got a dummy load, my balance line or wire, coax 1 and coax 2 on the tune side, and then of course it has the bypass side, which is coax 2, coax 1 balance line or wire, and a dummy load. The really nice thing I like about this is you can flip it over to the tune side on the dummy load and pre-tune it, so it'll get really close to what you're actually trying to tune, just using the dummy load on the tune side. And then of course you can switch over to whichever feed you're using at the time and finalize the tune. And I've noticed that it doesn't take very much actually to finalize the tune once you pre-tune it on the dummy load on the tune side. So that's a pretty cool feature. And of course the dual needles, and they're lighted, but you have to feed it 12 volts to a connection in the back of the tuner. Not that big of a deal. So let's continue. Here, this is my piece de resistance. This is my 40-year-old Kenwood TS180S. Yet no shit, it is 40 years old. The S just gives it basically the frequency display, which is, you can see it's just old as hell. This thing is really old. But somebody has actually taken the time to install the extra CW and sideband filters into it. So really cool. This thing, I can really crank up the compression on this thing and get a little extra power out of it, where normally I could get on PEP I could get about 80-90 watts. I can do a 420 watt output on this thing using just a little extra compression, which of course means turning the mic gain way down. I mean, down to 1/4. Normally on the low compression setting, I'll run the mic gain wide open. On high compression setting, I have to run the mic gain at about 1/4. Because anything more than that, if a mouse farted in the room, it would pick it up. I guess it's really good if you're a CBer and you want your D104 to crank up and hear the neighbors, screaming at each other. That's cool. Now, I'm not hating on CBers. I started on CB, and I actually started with a D104 and a massive ass bass radio. So there you go. Most ham radio operators start on 11 meters. I said it. Roast me. On top of this, this is of course my Yaesu rotator, and you would think that this thing is just up there. Yeah, don't mind the overlap light. I'm not overlapping, guys, I promise you. Look here, I'll show you, I'll prove it. Here we go, rotating around. Yep, now look, we're not overlapping anymore, and we're pointing just about, whoop, everything's backwards, about north. This is actually feeding my 2-meter beam. I've got a 5-element diamond up there. That's 2-meter only. And I like talking to 2-meter. Yeah, there's some 440 repeaters around here, but if I want to talk 440, then it is my Yaesu FD70. And you'll notice that I bought a lot of digital radio stuff as far as 2 meter and 70 centimeter goes. But that is because when I was in Jacksonville, there were a literal ton of Yaesu Fusion C4 FM repeaters, etc. around. Well, I moved down to Arkansas and there's no such thing. So, C4 FM has pretty much become useless now. But I still use my little HT because there are some 70 centimeter repeaters and stuff that I like to hit with it. And I can carry it around with me out in my yard. My yard is, I'll show you a video. My yard is literally forest, woods, whatever you call it. Depends on where you're from. I'm a redneck, so I carry my rifle, a beer, and my HT. So anyway, that is a good little rig rundown. And I've got a dipole coming in. Hey, yeah. Oh, speaking of which, I told you about my random piece of wire ran out there, stuck in the back of my tuner. It really pisses off everything in the shack because there's a lot of RF, and I knew there would be, but I've made Italy contacts with it, so it's got to be doing something. But I mean, it's too much RF. So I've got a G5RV coming, but I don't think I'm going to feed it with the coax. I think I'm going to cut the coax connector off of it and feed it with straight ladder line right into the back of my tuner. Now I know coax and ridiculous SWRs is very, very lossy. Just ridiculously lossy. And also ladder line is very, very low loss. And if you've got a T-style tuner, then you can get roughly 95% efficiency out of the thing, which is not bad. If you've got an automatic tuner with latching relays, then that gets up to 98%. So really good. But this is just a manual tuner. 95% is, trust me, that is plenty. So I'm going to go ahead and feed the ladder line. I'm cutting off the coax connector on the G5RV. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that when it comes in. It should come in hopefully in less than 24 hours. We'll see. So in the meantime, I have another dipole, which would be similar to a G5R Junior, G5RV Junior. A little bit shorter, but it's actually on the ground right now. And a lot of weird random signals out there. That is actually the dipole that's on the ground. And believe it or not, it outperforms my random wire that's out there probably at the end, I'd say 15 foot above the ground. And the dipole, it's late. It's like midnight. The dipole is on the ground and receives better with lower noise. But that's just a characteristic. It's kind of strange. So when the G5RV gets here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave the coax connector on it. And I'm going to go ahead and hook it up to the coax. And I'm going to feed the coax straight without a choke ballon. Now, the choke ballon is about 8 to 10 turns of coax. Right where the connection to the antenna of that